Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. As-salatu was-salamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. As always, we praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and we send peace and salutations on his noble and beloved messenger, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Peace and blessings of Allah be upon him. Welcome everyone locally and abroad to our session tonight. This is the last in a series of insects or arachnids. We'll know tonight that a spider is not really an insect from the Quran, but amazing lessons from Quran. I want to share with you just maybe a few slides to introduce the topic and introduce the speaker. Those of you who have been looking at news would have seen that there has been a Quran burning incident in Sweden. This took place just 2 days ago. And subhanallah, this particular gentleman, his name is Rasmus Paludan. Some of the major networks didn't carry it because this guy has been known for doing this. He's accustomed to doing something like this. He did it last year, so it's not new. Rasmus Paludan is a leader of a Danish far-right political party called Hardline, and he burned a copy of the Quran near the Turkish embassy in Stockholm in Sweden 2 days ago. This is it. I don't want to leave this long because it's really disheartening to look at. So this is him burning the Quran, and he invited the media to pick it up. Interestingly, he burnt the Quran in front of police with police vigilance, subhanallah. This is in fact is a protest being held in front of the Swedish consulate in Istanbul, January 23rd. We are talking very hot off the press. It has been condemned by several people. The High Representative of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, this is the gentleman. He has condemned the burning of the Muslim holy book by this Swedish far-right politician. Condemnation came from the Swedish Prime Minister. Condemnation came from Morocco, Indonesia, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the Gulf Cooperation Council, and OIC. And more, they have been condemning this particular vile act. Some refuse to even carry it. So there has been disrespect of the Quran. Is this the last one? It may not be. We probably will have more. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala save us from this disrespect. But I want to end by saying, do we really disrespect the Quran? The sessions you've been hearing by the Shaykh is really about, those of you who have been coming live, is really about amazing lessons, amazing principles, amazing things we can extract from Quran. Do we disrespect Quran? These non-Muslims, these people like Rasmus, continue to do it. And I'm saying to you that sometimes this amazing book that we have, if we don't read it, we disrespect it. If we don't take the guidance from Quran, it is a form of disrespect. If it is we don't extract the lessons and we only focused on blessings, blessings, and blessings, and we don't extract the lessons, well then we are also disrespecting the Quran. When it is we use it for decoration in our cars and in our houses, it is disrespect. The Quran, my brothers and sisters, it is really fundamentally for guidance. Alhamdulillah, we have been sharing these lessons over the last few days with our Shaykh, and we are asking people as a result of these, hoping to encourage and inspire others to develop a meaningful, long-lasting relationship with this amazing book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, especially as the month of Ramadan is approaching. Therefore, in tonight's session, we have lessons from the Quran, amazing lessons from spiders in the Quran. And to do the session for us tonight is no stranger. He has been with us in Trinidad for the last week. Our Shaykh, Dr. Abdullah Hakim Quick. You know that he was born in the United States and took Shahada many moons ago. He's a graduate of Islamic University of Medina. He has a PhD in African history. He has traveled to more than 60-something countries around the world, lecturing on Islam, attending conferences, webinars. SubhanAllah, he has been a teacher for maybe thousands of people. He, subhanAllah, agreed and kindly consented to visit us in Trinidad and Tobago. We are very pleased, the Islamic Dawah movement, extremely pleased to host our beloved brother, one of us. He's one of those, alhamdulillah, who slept with us in masjids in the Caribbean. He knows the Caribbean region. He has Caribbean roots. And we really want to welcome him tonight and share our platform with him and welcome our Shaykh and beloved brother, Shaykh Dr. Abdullah Hakim Quick, to present this session on amazing lessons of Tayyib. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah.
Assalamu alaikum. We're not hearing any volume. We're just seeing the slides going back and forth.
Okay. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wa usalli wa usallam ala Sayyid al-awwaleen wal akhirin. Nabiyyina Muhammadan wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Wa ba'd. All praise are due to Allah, Lord of the worlds. Peace and blessings be constantly showered upon our beloved Prophet Muhammad, the master of the first and the last, and upon his family, his companions, and all those who call to his way and establish his sunnah to the day of judgment. As to what follows, my beloved brothers and sisters, I begin with the greeting words of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah, it is a great privilege, it is a great honor, again, to be with you here in this very strategic, very important series. And we have been looking at amazing stories from the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and reflecting on what is happening in the world. The situation today that Muslims find themselves in, the Muslims today find themselves in a situation of a tidal wave of immoralities, tidal waves of climate change, tidal waves of economic difficulties. And so it is a time of patience, it is a time of sincerity, and the recent burning of the Quran in Sweden and in Holland and other places is something that's not new. And what we have to recognize, because sometimes people get personally hurt, by these insane acts that these disbelievers are doing. But we have to recognize the fact that the Quran is not the paper. It's not the book. It is tilawah, it is tanzil, it is wahi, it is revelation. And has been brought by the angel Jibreel to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It has been preserved in the minds and the hearts of the believers. And so they can burn all the paper that they want, but they're not doing anything to the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. They are just making it difficult for themselves in this life and in the hereafter. But what we have to recognize, because this seems like an extreme act, it's a very petty act for people who claim to have high civilization and they're very powerful. But we have to realize that it is not just the Quran itself. The fear that people in Europe has is based upon a number of realities in the world. And we have been discussing this, and for those who have not been on with us in our earlier sessions, I'll just do a slight review to make a transition so everything is equal. Number one, we have to recognize what the Muslim world represents. It's over 26% of the Earth's population. Not only are there millions of Muslims in China and millions in India and Indonesia, on the African continent, Islam is the largest religion, and it's the fastest growing religion really in the earth. But what a lot of people don't realize is that in Europe itself, where you would think that Muslims do not really have a place in society, you'll find that in places like Belgium and Holland, 50% of the children who are born in the hospitals today are Muslims. In Paris and Marseille, in France, which is known for its hatred of hijab and Islam, people under 26 years old, the majority in France, Paris, and Marseille are Muslims. You'll find this all over the continent. And the Muslim population is rising. And we have young people, 60% of the Ummah are actually under 25 years old. So we are a religion or a way of life of the future. And you find that many of the European nations, they are what they call graying nations, because their majority are actually older people, over 50 years old. And so really for them, they don't see themselves that strong in terms of their representation with humanity in the future. The Muslim world also is rich in natural resources. Some of the most rare minerals lie under our countries. Our countries also lie in strategic positions, strategic mountain passes, strategic waterways, strategic coastlines. As an ummah, which stretches all over the world, we are in a position to impact shipping, to impact all of the different movements that human beings are making. Our countries have huge standing armies, hundreds and thousands of men who are standing at arms. We have intellectuals, we have educational resources, we even have universities now, and we have so many books, and we have all the technologies, and we have a strong history of power and respect, to the point where honest people, when they go back to the dark ages of Europe, that is extending from somewhere around, say, 400 AD to about 15th century AD, that period in there, that was the golden age of Islam. And so it is because Muslims preserved the knowledge of the ancient ones, and we added to this, and we put it in a modern form, that Europe was able to go through a transition that they call the Renaissance to turn into what it is today. So there's great potential in the Muslim world. But the reality is, and we have been looking at this, and we have to be honest to ourselves, because we're not just studying this to feel good. We are looking at this to understand about ourselves, our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and our relationship with each other, because it's really critical for our nation. What is happening is we have some of the richest people on the face of the planet Earth, but we also have some of the poorest people on Earth. See, that's a contradiction. We have standing armies, but yet we're finding humiliation on the ground. And this is creating a type of frustration. And you find in some cases that many of the ulama, scholars, and they will debate about minor issues, whereas in the foundations, they're actually the same, but they'll debate about these hair-splitting issues and waste their time. So this is like a type of frustration that has set in. And when we try to see how to come out of this, we find that people are crying for change. People are crying for Islamic states, for Islamic entities that are really practicing Islam. People are also crying for change. They want economic change. They want Islamic banking, Islamic social change. In some countries, Muslims just want halal food. But we're constantly calling for change. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has revealed to us in his everlasting book, Allah told us, Inna Allah la yughayyiru ma biqawmin hatta yughayyiru ma bi anfusihim. Allah will not change the condition of a people until they change that which is in themselves. So our reality is, it's the internal Muslim. It's something within our hearts, something within our families, something within the inner parts of our ummah. And that is critical for us to understand and critical for us to practice. And we recognize that in dealing with the Quran, this is the revelation that is still in its original form. And we understood, and one great scholar, Sidi Ahmed Zarruq, rahimahullah, of Morocco, that's Fez in Morocco, this is in Africa, and he said sincerity to the Quran is tahseen tilawatihi wa tadabbur ayatihi wa itba' awamirihi. That is, you beautify the recitation of the Quran and you think about the meaning. So it's not enough just to read it in beautiful, melodious tones, but you have to think about what you are reading, understand it, contemplate on it, and finally follow its commands. And that is the complete relationship to the book of Allah, which would then make things like the Quran burning seem ridiculous, because all they're burning is pieces of paper. They're not burning a revelation which is in the minds and the hearts of people, which is motivating people, which is actually guiding their way. They can never destroy this. And so with that in mind, we looked at the lives of different insects. We studied a namal, and we went to Surah An-Naml verses 15 to 18, and we found out that the ant is the most successful creature on earth. And there are millions of ants, 20 million ants for every person. And ants live on every continent in the world except Antarctica. And it's strange that ant is in Antarctica, the South Pole. Everywhere else in the world, there are ants. And what shows out in the Quran is when the armies of Sulaiman alayhi salam were moving along, and one of the ants, and she is female, Namla. The Quran says female, and that's a miracle also, because how could the Prophet ﷺ know that the ants' majority are females? And instead of just running herself from the army, she called out to the other ants and said, hide yourself so you will not be crushed by the army of Sulaiman alayhi salam. So we found out that the ants are so successful because their character, even though they have billions of themselves, they respect each other, regardless of whether you're a worker ant, queen, drone, female. They have all types of ants. They think in one mind. Ummah consciousness. This is one of the lessons. And they're also selfless. And so the ant cried out to the other ants. And ants, an experiment was done in Argentina, and they made a maze, and the ants were put in it. And as they moved along, they blocked it. And so whenever it got difficult, they found out that the more difficult the circumstances are, is the more polite the ants became with each other. Think about that. That's so important to us today. And so because of these amazing qualities, the ants are the most successful creature on earth. We also studied An-Nahl, and we went to Surah An-Nahl verses 68 to 69. And we found that the bee is an amazing creature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, living all over the world except Antarctica, and producing the beautiful honey. And the life of this bee is so important. It is because of pollination that the bees are pollinating different plants by carrying the pollen around to other plants. And you find that a good percentage, maybe a third or more of the world's food supply is based upon the bees. And so Allah shows the beauty and the importance of the bee. Tonight we want to look at the spider, Al-Ankaboot. And this is another very important creature, to the point where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning the spiders in his book. And Allah tells us in Surah Al-Ankaboot, this is 29 and verses 41, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم مثل الذين اتخذوا من دون الله أولياء كمثل العنكبوت اتخذت بيتا وإن أوهن البيوت لبيت العنكبوت لو كانوا يعلمون. Allah told us the parable of those who take guardians beside Allah is as the parable of the spider that makes for itself a dwelling. And most surely the frailest of houses is the spider's house, if they but knew. And so this is deep, and we tend to just go over this, but when we go into it, we realize, what is Allah saying? Allah is saying that it's a weak house. Awhan al-buyut. There's weakness, but yes, you see the comparison. Because when you look at the spider's house, and this is a spider web there in front of you, you can see the raindrops that are there. And so physically, it's a beautiful design, but when the rain comes, it can't stop the rain. It can't protect the spider from heat, nor the cold, nor the wind. So in a sense, it is a frail house. And the beautiful example that Allah is making is that the parable of this is that shirk itself, those who take gods besides Allah, and they call upon, they believe they're people, and they worship anything. This is a trick. And this leads them actually to their death and destruction in this life and in the hereafter. And so worshiping physical things is the frailest type of worship that people can have, even though it seems to be the easiest way, but it is the frailest form of worship. And that is a beautiful method. These are parables that the Quran brings, and it is there for us to think, to reflect on, not just to read it and go on. But a scientist would say, wait a minute. The Quran is saying that it's a frail house, but at the same time, the web is one of the most aerodynamically amazing structures on earth. It is excellent for trapping prey, especially winged flying insects. And it's specially made like that. And you can see in this frame here, the shape of one of the nets and how organized the spider has to be. And this is how the spiders actually live. And so in a sense, it is very strong. And also the web, the material, as we'll see, is also very strong. But the Quran is saying, Awhan al-buyut. Now, you have to realize we have come across the word wahan. And the Prophet ﷺ spoke about Muslims at the end of time who would be large in numbers. And they would be everywhere, but they would be weak, like hutha as-sail. They would be like the foam and the scum in the water. And when the companions asked about this, he said, there's wahan. They have a wahan, a disease. And they said, what is this? And he said, hubbid dunya wa karahiyatul maut. You will love the life of this world, and you will be afraid to die. You hate death. And that is a disease. So here it says, Awhan. So it is one of the sickest places. And Awhan, wahan also means dispirited and despondent. So you know you're depressed. And it's almost like not only a physical disease, but like a spiritual disease. And so there's something about the house of the spider. In other words, the lifestyle of the spider. There's something Allah is pointing us to, and you need to study it. And so this is where we go deeper into the Quran to try to understand what could Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mean in this case. The spiders are amazing. Number one, they are arachnids. And they are the largest arachnids, and they are seventh in the total species diversity amongst all orders of organisms in terms of the diversity within these animals. But again, they are found everywhere except Antarctica. You see, the penguins can make it, but ants can't make it, bees can't, hardly any other creatures can make it down in this area. But the spiders are everywhere. Now, these are some of your arachnids. There is the tick, okay, and we all have some strange feelings about arachnids, right? There's the tick, scorpion, crab spider, there's the garden spider, there's the water spider, and then there's the red-kneed tarantula. And this causes, what people will call like arachnophobia. People are afraid of Islam, so they say Islamophobia. But there's some people who are afraid of arachnids. And you can see the shape of it, but they're creatures of Allah. And they're mainly predators. And this is the shape of some of them. This is how they look. And you can see the different forms of the spider. And there are so many of the spiders in so many different places. And what is interesting about them is that some of them are social, but usually the spider lives alone. Now, let's look at the lifestyle of the spider. But you could have 1 million spiders they can live in 1 acre in the city. In the jungle, there's 3 million spiders in 1 acre in the jungle. Imagine that. That's how many spiders there are, because they're all different sizes, all different types. But arachnophobia, I had arachnophobia as a young man. I was terrorized by some of these movies where the tarantula is crawling over the stomach of the person. And so this hairy creature going on, it's so bad that 50% of women have arachnophobia. And at least 18% of men also suffer from arachnophobia. Just put a spider in the place and you'll see people run away for some illogical reason. Now, what is amazing about the spider? And this is something we need to understand, and that is the thread of the spider. You see, this is like very complex because, the lifestyle is sick, but the actual shape and what Allah has manifested through the spider is unbelievable. And scientists have found that the thread of a spider is like biosteel, they call it, 5 times stronger than steel. And if it is made into rope, 30 centimeters in diameter, it could bear the weight of 150 cars. Think about this. And despite its delicacy, it's the strongest biological substance known to mankind. Only one substance is strong, is not as flexible, and that is melted quartz. But this is, it stretches and it is powerful. So this, Allah manifested this through the spider. But at the same time, the lifestyle, you could say the house of the spider, is spiritually sick. It is deprived of love and deprived of kindness, deprived of mercy. And that is what we call, and we'll go on, as mawadda wa rahmah, as Allah said in the Quran. That is like love and mercy, kindness. There is none of this in the house of a spider. It's a tragic lifestyle. Because remember, the spiders, the big spiders who you see that are doing the work and building the webs, they're females. They're females. So she produces the thread, builds the house, and she lives alone. She's what we call today a single mother. And she's an angry woman. And we have some angry sisters too, even in our own community. And this is the tragedy that Allah is trying to show us. Don't live your life like this. Here is a picture of a black widow spider. And the black widow spider has no use for the males except for mating. So when it's time to mate, she puts out her smell. She's got a nice orange design on her body. And so here's the brother here, moving in, thinking that he's the big man. And okay, so she's a little bit bigger, but he goes and then he mates with her. And when he's finished, when it's over, this size right here, if he is not as big as the woman or bigger, she kills him. She takes his life. And in many cases, she will kill him and eat him. Now, this is a tragic lifestyle. And it's only if the male is big enough and strong enough that after he mates, then she lets him go. But she's an angry woman. And the lifestyle is tragic. She is spending her life by herself. And she's a predator. So she basically is killing and eating. And this is the lifestyle of the spider. Another aspect of this lifestyle, which is important for us to understand, and that is the raising of children. Now, remember that Allah said He will not change the condition of a people till they change that which is in themselves. And our situation with our children today is a crisis. We need to look at our lifestyles again. I know we may have to have 2 jobs. Life is difficult, but somehow in the raising of the children, we have to go back to the Islamic way of knowing your father and your mother and having a balanced family. In the case of the spider, the eggs are hatched and they're put in a sack, which is covered with silk. And the female could lay between 2 and 1,000 eggs. And she puts them into the sack. And if there are too many of them developing at the same time, they can actually turn against each other. And so what happens is, you see that sack, this is how it looks now. And now they're getting bigger and bigger. They're like in an egg-like form, there's a shell. And when they break out of the shell and they have their own poison, they have their own ability to fight, it's an unhappy childhood. The brother kills its brother and his sister. The sister kills its sister and its brother. And they keep on fighting each other inside of their house until only the strongest ones, so the spiderlings that are strong enough, they will live, but the majority of them will die. And they're killed by their own brothers and sisters. This is an unhappy childhood. So when the spider comes out of this sack and into the world, it has terrible memories of childhood. Memories not of love of their siblings, but struggling against them, not having enough space to live, not having activities, nothing set up. And the house is so dangerous that sometimes the mother, if she's hungry, she'll eat some of the children. Could you imagine that? So this is a sick house. Strong in one sense, but it is sick in another sense. And we should never forget the example that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving to us. And so when we look at the Islamic concept, and again, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us this information, in a sense, it is helping us to understand what we have. And we need to reflect on this. And we need to reflect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told us in Surah Al-Rum, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ أَنْ خَلَقَ لَكُم مِّنْ أَنفُسِكُمْ أَزْوَاجًا لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا وَجَعَلَ بَيْنَكُم مَّوَدَّةً وَرَحْمَةً إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يَتَفَكَّرُونَ. Allah tells us, and from His signs, He has created from yourself mates, companions, that you would live together in peace, sakina. So the house should not be an arena of war. The man comes home or the woman comes home and then they start fighting each other and struggling against each other. That's not how the Islamic house is supposed to be set up. لِتَسْكُنُوا إِلَيْهَا. And what did Allah put in between them? Mawadda wa rahma. And that is love and mercy. And that mawadda is not just a mental, but it is love in actions as well. Not just saying, I love you, but living it, living the love. And that is so important in our relationships. The Quran in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 187, it describes the relationship of husband and wife. Hunna libasun lakum wa antum libasun lahun. They are a clothing for you, O men, and they are clothing for you, O women. Libas. So the husband and wife, they are clothing. What does your clothes do? It protects you from the environment. It also describes you. You see, libas, it's a very personal thing, our clothing. And so, beautiful descriptions. And the Prophet ﷺ has also said, إِنَّمَا النِّسَاء شَقَائِقَ الرِّجَالِ, that women are the close relations of the men. So we are shaqiq. This is like a close brother and sister. We're from the same human family. We should be the closest to each other because we're part of humanity. And this is the relationship that Allah subhanahu has given to us. But think about the opposite. Think about the difficulties and think about awhan al-buyut, which has no love and it has no mercy. The parents don't have mercy. You see the male? The male can also, if he's big enough and strong enough, the male might start eating the children. So that's another reason why she has to get rid of him. And the mother, after she is mated with this man, who's a useless man, after she's finished with him, if she's hungry, she might even eat him. And this is a warning, brothers, right? To realize what's in nature and what is to come if we don't do right and do justice to the women of Islam. And so this is a sign to us. And I believe that this is one of the most important areas for Muslims today, and that is the family, that we need to build healthy, empowered families. And that means that the women of Islam have to be empowered with skills, empowered with authority, empowered with wealth. And when you give a dowry, the mahar, it's not just 25 rupees or some symbolic thing. It's supposed to be wealth that you're giving the woman. You are empowering her. In West Africa, amongst the Fulani people, for instance, when a Muslim gets married, the mahar may be 10 or 20 cows. So with a nomadic community, that's empowerment. And you'll find the same in different societies. And so even the mahar is empowerment. The woman should not have the same bank account as the man. Every sister should have her own bank account. She doesn't even have to take his name. She should be independent, but at the same time, love and mercy, connected with each other. And that is the beauty of the Quran, mawadda wa rahma. It's love at first. It's physical, it's emotional. And then as we get older and our bodies start to deteriorate, we're not as good as before, we're not as wealthy, then mercy. That we need to have mercy on each other. Divorce is a plague, is plaguing our communities. And this is the sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He said, don't be like the spiders, because awhan al-buyut labaytul Ankaboot. It is the most sick, despondent, depressed home. And you know what's interesting? In Surah An-Naml, remember the description, Naml is plural, ants. Nahal is plural, bees. But Ankaboot is singular. Look at the miracle in the Quran. Because spiders, fundamentally, basically, they live alone. And that is an example. There's a purpose for them, by the way. Somebody would say, well, what's the purpose of this killing machine that is there? Spiders are cleaning up our society. It cleans up insects. We have these, in Canada even, we have these black gnats. These things will come in the spring and fill the air. The spiders set up their web. You look at a spider web, it's filled with these little insects, and it eats them and drinks from them. So literally, spiders are consuming tons of insects. And so they're literally a natural disposal system that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made to clean our air and to clean our societies. So Allah has a purpose for everything, but He gives us an example for those who would have tadabbur, contemplate, reflect upon the book of Allah Azza wa Jal. And so it's important for us to take these lessons. Number one, that Almighty Allah is the main guardian and protector. So don't take no gods other than Allah. Depend upon Allah. Tawakkul ala Allah. In a relationship, the husband in the marriage should have respect, but he earns it through providing and protecting. The Quran says, "Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa," that men should be providers and protectors of women. Right? So what is qawwam? It's not just because you're hairy and you're a man. It's because of what you do. And you earn your respect. But the mother's position should be respected and loved and given its true value. And women should be empowered in our relationship. We should have shura. We should have mutual consultation in our relationships. And mercy and love should be the basis of an Islamic home. Even if, may Allah forbid, they have to break up. You do that with love, and you do it with ihsan, with righteousness, because you still have children in between you. Another point, which is one of our lessons we're taking, sufficient space should be given to the children to develop properly within our homes. This is important when you're establishing a home, that you give space and you start to teach modesty to the male and female, even though they're the same family. Teach modesty from when they're young. Don't wait until puberty for the young girl to start wearing hijab, or for the young man, to start dressing like a Muslim, making his salah. Start early and teach modesty, haya. That is so important for our families. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, إِذَا لَمْ تَسْتَحِي فَاصْنَعْ مَا شِئْتَ. If you don't have haya, modesty, do what you want to do. In other words, you're capable of doing anything. So we need to teach this by example and by showing the Quran and showing lifestyle to our children. This is the true Islamic home, right? Not just design, but socially, spiritually. This is what Islamic life should be about. And this is an example of anti. It's like what don't do. So the Ankaboot is showing us what not to do. And that sometimes is a beautiful way to teach, that the Quran sometimes teaches us. And again, the Ankaboot, it's a solitary life. That's why Allah said Ankaboot in singular, right? And the only time when she's socializing with the males, it's just in the time of mating, right? And when eggs hatching, okay? Whereas the ants and the bees, they give us another example. The ants are the most successful. They are social. They take care of each other. They protect each other. They respect each other. That's what we want to do. But the solitary life is what we don't want to do, especially the angry life of a single mother who found herself in a terrible situation because of possibly abuse from the man. We have to fear Allah Azza wa Jal, brothers, and what He has given to us about being a man inside of this world. I want to leave you with the most beautiful spider on earth. This is an Australian spider. For those of you who have arachnophobia, look at the beautiful colors in this spider. I know for some of you, even that's going to scare you, right? Because the legs, right, or the eyes. But look at the beautiful colors in this spider. So this is a creature of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it is not something for us to be afraid of or to have some illogical fear. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from a sick home and a sick lifestyle. And may Allah give us the cooperation of the ants and the bees and the beautiful, healthy life that comes out of following sunnah and submitting to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I leave you with these thoughts, and I open up the floor for any questions that you may have. You can put them into the chat room, and I don't know how we'll do this, but right from the chat, you can see, and we'll look here to see if there's any.
So let me get in. Shukran, jazakumullahu khairan, Shaykh.
Yeah.
So anybody who have questions, preferably topic related, feel free to unmute. Brother Amir is managing the controls. He will allow you to unmute and ask the question or put it in the chat. Either way, the Shaykh will in fact take questions that is preferably topic related.
Yes, so there is a point, arachnids are not insects in the sense that insects generally have 6 legs. That's true. So the arachnids have 8. They are a different category, but generally, to put it all together, we use the concept of insects, but you are correct. Arachnids are a special category, and I showed you the different types of arachnids that there are. Okay. Yes, so the floor is open now for any questions that anybody has. You can unmute yourself and ask a question there, or you can put something into the chat room. Is there any other way for them to write the questions? You can put it into the chat room now. Yeah. Okay. So there's one new message that has come. It says, what is the ruling regarding killing spiders? Okay, generally speaking, we should not be just killing the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the spiders play a great role within society. However, sometimes the creatures, especially if it comes inside of your house, and if there are some spiders like the black widow, it's actually poisonous. So in that case, it is permissible, even if a person, is making salat and a black widow spider goes over your prayer mat or a scorpion, you can actually break your salat, kill it, and then continue praying. So it is possible, but it shouldn't be just kill to kill. But if they are really causing a threat to you and your family, then it is permissible, to take their lives. But we need to change our understanding of the creatures of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now, floor is open now for any other questions.
Yeah, Shaykh, you said about the baby spiders. They grow up with very bad memories of their childhood, so to speak. I don't know if I missed it, but is there any proof of they having a memory as such that they are like intelligent insects or whatever?
Yes, so maybe,
sure.
When the eggs are laid, they're inside of a sac covered by silk. And so they're all very tight. And when they develop, and when they come out of their little eggs that are there, and there could be 1,000 inside this sac, right? They are all tight right on top of each other. So they have to fight each other in order to survive. And maybe they have stingers and they start killing each other and fighting, until they can break out of the sac. And so the first memory they have of their brothers and sisters is actually killing their brothers and sisters, fighting their family members in order to survive. So when they leave the sac and they go on their own, they have that memory. They're carrying that memory with them. And you can see this solitary life that the spider leads. And you can see the spider, especially the female, is a killing machine. And it starts right there. Now we take the lesson from this, that, you need to watch your children's life. You need to give space to the children, positive activities. If the father and mother have a disagreement, try never to argue in front of your children. And never raise, a man should not even raise his hand to a Muslim woman. And you can bring all the proof that you want. But, the only permissibility was like, in the extreme case of a woman, and it's to tap her with a little miswak, and this is not what brothers do. Brothers get angry and they start moving in like Mike Tyson, the boxer. This is not the way. And so it's important for us, watch out for your children. And if your children are in daycare, you need to watch out who is running the daycare and how it is set up, because they can start having bad memories from when they're young, and they'll carry it on into puberty and then into their adulthood, and then you have confusion. And I used to watch some people. Yeah. Okay. So we'll open up the floor. Yeah, I'll shorten it. Is somebody coming? No, there's a question here. It says, would you think also reflective of Muslims tending to be bickering and isolated among themselves and not really having cohesive community, thus leading to emptying the masjids? Yes. A lot of the bickering and arguing that we do. You know what I found out? That, there are some sisters who spoil their males. They make the girl put on hijab and clean up her room and whatever, but the young boy, his room is messed up. He doesn't have to make a salah. And so he becomes a spoiled brat. You especially find this in the Middle East. And so if the young male is a spoiled brat, now when he's in a leadership position, he's a spoiled brat again. And so if he gets in the position of Amir or Imam, he doesn't know how to resolve conflicts. He loses his temper. He's spoiled. He wants everything his way. He can't agree to disagree. And much of that comes from his childhood. I believe some of the leaders in the Middle East and other places are spoiled brats who now have an army underneath them. But from the beginning, their mother should have said, that Zayd, you take out the garbage. You clean your bed. You clean yourself. You make your salat. Even if you can appear like a Muslim, don't be ashamed to be a Muslim. If that had happened when they were younger and they carried it into adulthood, you might not see some of the bad behavior that some of our leaders have today. So yes, this is a reflection for us about raising children. Floor is open again for any comments that anybody may have or any questions. The mic can be unmuted.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam wa rahmah.
Welcome to Trinidad, Shaykh.
Alhamdulillah, I love it.
I would like to say that women need to know their rights,
Mhm.
especially in regards to marriage. That they should know that the husband is expected to maintain and to protect them. And it is not the responsibility of the woman to contribute towards the maintaining of the home and the family.
Yeah.
A lot of converts, Muslim women converts, you know, the Muslim, they get married and they are so disillusioned because the men ill-treat them.
That's right.
You know, it's a big problem, you know.
Yeah.
If you could, you know, address this a little bit, please. Jazakallah.
Yes, I agree. It's so important for sisters to understand, you know, their rights, their responsibilities. You know, I used to go to these sessions and they would say, you know, the rights of men and the duties of women. You know, like the men have all the rights and the women have all the duties. No, both of them have rights and both of them have duties. And this is the way it should be taught right from the beginning. Sisters should be empowered with Islamic education, empowered with skills development. We're not going to go to extreme like feminism. We're not talking about that. We are a balanced way, but we do believe that a woman should be independent. And if she has a problem, she can fall back on her bank account. You know, she has a dowry. Don't let your husband fool you. She says, oh, Zainab, you know, we're in love. You know, put your money in my bank account. No. You should have a separate, independent bank account and your own wealth till even you can pay your own zakat. Independence, which is so important. And really what happens out of this is that men will respect a woman more, you know, when she's independent. Now, one of the crises we're facing, however, is that because of the expensive societies we're living in, sometimes one income is not enough. So what is arranged from that is that, you know, she might have to get a job and he gets a job, but that means his mentality has to change. You know, I remember the case of the brother and the sister, they both worked. And so the sister would come home from work at 5 o'clock and the brother comes home at 6 o'clock. Now she's been at work all day, workers' rights and whatever. She comes home, she's tired. He comes home at 6, kicks his shoes off and says, where's my dinner? And she turns to him and said, you cook the dinner. And then the war starts. So if she is going to be the one, she has to work, then don't expect that she's the one who has to be cleaning the house and cooking the dinner. You need to get a maid to clean your house. You need to, even the male, you need to do some cooking, do some cleaning yourself. If you want her to take part of your responsibility of protecting and providing for that family. That's hikmah. That's the wisdom of knowing how to respond and how to deal with our circumstances. So all we need is a little bit of humility and a little bit of wisdom and balance, and we can start to come out of it. But remember, it starts from childhood. The example your child is seeing, the lifestyle, and then the community also provides some example. And this, you know, grows right into adulthood. So we need to start right from the beginning. Floor is open for any final questions that anybody may have. I think it says, you mentioned the large number of Muslims living in Europe and other countries. While it may not be as big of an issue in Trinidad in particular, we find that there's a divide between older parents who adhere to their own cultural bias, forced marriages, mistreatment of women, and younger Muslims who adopt Western culture. What's the solution? The solution is not cultural exploitation based on our cultural traditions, and it's not Western way of life, which is feminism. The solution is Islam, because what Islam gives, if we can study it properly, and that's why we're going through these chapters and these verses. If we study it properly and know the fiqh of marriage, the jurisprudence of marriage, the jurisprudence of responsibility, then we can find that yes, the husband should be the leader of the family, but he's not Pharaoh. He's not a tyrant. He takes the advice of his wife. And in some cases, she leads. She should take the lead. There's some cases, I know this one case, the brother and sister are driving in the car, the brother's driving, and they're going, and the sister knows that he should turn right. But he starts going forward, and she sort of looks at him, and he's a big man, and he has to always be right. So he goes forward, and then after a few stops and everything, he realized they're going the wrong way. He looks at her, and she says, by the way, darling, you made a mistake, and let's go back here, to the light that is there. Okay? If he respected his wife, when he came to that point where he wasn't sure, he would turn to her and say, like, what is your opinion? What do you think? Or she would just be able to talk because of their relationship. That's how it should be. And when men empower women, brothers, you got to realize you're putting strength in back of you. It's not taking away from your strength. It's actually making you stronger than what you were before. And this is critical for us because our families are under attack. And you will see in the coming months and years, there is some issues coming with our children and in the schooling, in the society. We are in a crisis. So we need to build strong families. Now, one comment is saying, can we take from the female spider the role of leadership, fighting for dominance and respect that women think that they should have in today's culture? The Quran is saying that the house of the spider is a sick house. So it's sick. So, the Islamic way is not the way of the black widow spider. Because then you have an angry, what we call in Jamaica, baby mother, or, a single mother, no. This is not the way because it's anger. It should be balanced. So the Islamic way is not the Western way, and it's not our ignorant cultural way, where you have arranged marriages only and abuse of women. No. The Islamic way is different than our cultures. Yes, much of our culture is correct if you come from a Muslim society, but Islam is the balance. Islam is the way. It's the only way that we're going to be able to come out of this crisis that we are in today. So we're coming to a conclusion now. I think the question here is coming, can we kill the ants if they are getting in our homes and foods and plants? Yes, you see, the thing about, again, killing, insects or killing the creatures, we should try to avoid it. However, if it's causing a nuisance or endangering you, you can do something. Now, one of the brothers gave an example, to me. He works on a farm because some people are having problems with ants on the farm. He said, if you put cotton around the area, okay, then the ants will get stuck in the cotton. So around your house, for instance, the ants are coming in the house. What I used to do when I lived in South Africa, there were very aggressive ants in Cape Town. And so what I would do, I would spray, they would come in through holes, in the front door or even right through the crack in the front door. So I would spray right around where the hole is, right around the door. And so when the ants would come to that and they realize it's poison, ants are very intelligent, they go somewhere else. So you didn't kill the ants, but you gave the message, don't enter into this area. So we need to be balanced. If there is a danger, to yourself or your family, then it is permissible to take their lives. Another point is, can the anger expressed by female spider be compared to radical feminism? I mean, I don't want to go there and actually be using it. But really, when women reach the point where they hate men and they're trying to destroy men, and their whole thing is to conquer men, then in a sense, it is like this black widow spider in a sense. But the problem is that the spider, is made like this because the spider is a killing machine for the insects. But many of these radical movements, like in the feminist, they're not really serving any purpose, but causing confusion in the society and breaking up our families. So I wouldn't go there, exactly to say that, because, the spider is the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the spider plays a role within life and within the creation of Allah Azza wa Jalla.
Okay, we'll allow one more question. We will close off, inshallah.
I have a question.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Assalamu alaikum. Shaykh is Habib. I'm driving back to Toronto and I listening to you, and this question is bothering me. The narration around the spider web that protected the Prophet ﷺ in the cave of Saur.
Right.
It may not be necessarily authentic, but there is some meaning to that narration in the Muslim world. Could you address that?
Yes, I mean, you notice that I didn't mention that because of the fact that, the story is that the Prophet ﷺ is making his hijrah and he's with Abu Bakr and they went into a cave and the Quraysh was right in back of them. And a spider built a web around the front of the cave. So when the Quraysh came, they said, no, they can't be in there because otherwise they would have broken the web. That narration is a weak tradition. It has been. There's another narration that actually say birds came and, made a nest in front of it. But, another understanding of the scholars is it's the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, actually diverted the minds of the Quraysh from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon. There's angels, right? There's malaika. Okay, so, whether it is that spider or not, we still need to respect the spider, creation of Allah, chapter of the Quran. So it's very important to take the lessons from the spider, and Allah knows best. So I want to end on this point, and I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, would forgive us for our mistakes that we have made and would accept the striving that we had. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the wisdom of the Quran to implement this into our life. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala help our children, enable our children to come away from this onslaught of immorality that is coming down on our family and our world. May Allah Azza wa Jal unite the Muslims and protect the children of the Ummah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. May Allah protect the dignity and the honor of the women of the Ummah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. May Allah strengthen the men of the Ummah of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. May Allah raise up leadership in the Muslim world to balance leadership, to take us from darkness into light. And may Allah make our last words our best words. Kalima la ilaha illallah, Muhammadur Rasulullah, sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, subhanakallahu wa bihamdika, nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilus salihat, wa tawasaw bil haqq wa tawasaw bis sabr. Wa sallallahu ta'ala ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in, wa akhir da'wana. And alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Okay,
Wa alaikum
Shaykh.
assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.